It is incredibly difficult to imagine the immense, long path of life's development on our planet. On the scale of Earth's geological history, human life is but a brief moment. A human life is like a mayfly sitting on the trunk of a centuries-old oak tree. The lifespan of an adult mayfly is only one day, and if it is possessed the ability to think, it would hardly be able to imagine the entire long path of the oak's development from an acorn and a weak sprout to a mighty adult tree. The first to appear on the planet were prokaryotes, anucleate organisms whose cells lacked a nucleus. These unicellular creatures were characterized by simplicity of structure and function. The initial stage of their life occurred in anaerobic conditions, in the absence of oxygen, and the first prokaryotes could have been heterotrophs. For life, they consumed ready-made organic substances. Other prokaryotes could have been producers, capable of chemical synthesis of organic substances. Most of these organisms obtained energy through fermentation or anaerobic respiration, with sulfates, nitrates, etc., serving as their source of oxygen. Traces of prokaryotic life have been found in the most ancient Precambrian metamorphic rocks of crystalline shields on almost all continents of the globe. Radiological methods date their age to 3.5 billion years. In Proterozoic, autotrophic organisms appeared, using carbon dioxide to build their bodies and capable of creating organic substances from inorganic ones. They used solar energy for photosynthesis and converted carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. The first photosynthetic organisms, cyanobacteria, were found in rocks aged 3.4 billion years. With their appearance, solar energy entered the biosphere and the planet began to change rapidly. Initially, only cyanobacteria produced oxygen, then marine algae, building stromatolites, also began to create it. However, very little oxygen accumulated in the atmosphere, as it reacted with iron dissolved in water. In the process, iron oxides precipitated and, with the help of cyanobacteria, turned into iron-containing minerals. Today, these are valuable iron ores that form the world's largest iron ore deposits, the Crookes magnetic anomaly, Minas Gerais in Brazil, etc. Throughout Earth's geological history, cyanobacteria have changed little. Forms very close to them still inhabit our planet today. Only when the ocean was freed from iron and other polyvalent metals as a result of the activity of the first autotrophic organisms did the concentration of oxygen in the air begin to increase and, approximately 2 billion years ago, reached 1% of the modern level. The stable content of free oxygen in the atmosphere led to a complete restructuring of the planet's biosphere. This occurred primarily thanks to eukaryotes, the first nuclear organisms. They appeared 1.5 billion years ago and were likely free-floating. This stage of life's development is characterized by such an amount of free oxygen that was already sufficient for the appearance of animals consuming it through respiration. During this period, the ozone layer formed in Earth's atmosphere, blocking harsh ultraviolet radiation harmful to living organisms. At each new stage of evolution, life on planet increasingly acquired modern features. Subsequent stages in the development of the biosphere are recorded in the Stone Chronicle of Earth's geological history. According to academician Sokolov, multicellular plants and animals appeared almost simultaneously, approximately 650 million years ago, when the planet's atmosphere became enriched with oxygen. In late Precambrian deposits, various representatives of aquatic plants are found: multicellular algae, macroplanktonic algae, colonial, spiral filamentous algae, etc. This period is characterized by numerous marine invertebrates, of which 70% were coelenterates, especially jellyfish-like swimming forms, or unattached colonial organisms like modern siphonophores. The fauna also included marine worms and pteridate discoid organisms, similar to starfish. The development of multicellular organisms contributed to the emergence of ancestral forms, predecessor of fungi, animals, and plants, which arose later in the process of evolution. As organisms became more complex, the structure of their cells, tissues, and plant organs improved. The development of life on the planet is well traced in paleontology from the Phanerozoic, which began 570 million years ago. It is divided into three eras: the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. The colonization of land in Ordovician, Silurian, and Devonian led to enormous changes in the structure and way of life of plants. Apparently, at this time, algal crusts were developed on land, and the first terrestrial bryophytes and lichens appeared. Having emerged onto land, plants developed adaptation to anchor themselves on its surface. They began to increase the photosynthetic mass of their bodies and improve their reproductive organs. Data from paleobotany, the science of extinct plants, show that various structures in land plants appeared gradually and sequentially. For example, the first fragments of the cuticle appeared in plants in the Ordovician, leaves with stomata in the Silurian, and plants with tracheids in the Devonian. With the appearance of the cuticle, water absorption through the body surface became impossible, and roots formed. Plants began to develop conductive tissues, tracheids, xylem vessels, and phloem. Gradually, in the process of evolution, the alternation of generations also improved. At the end of Silurian, one of the key events in the history of the biosphere occurred: vascular plants appeared. This group of living organisms has no equal. Thanks to them, the intensity of organic matter formation significantly increased, and diverse groups of animals emerged. Scientists consider the oldest groups of land plants to be multicellular algae, rhinophytes, and bryophytes. Rhinophytes appeared at the end of Silurian, 4-10 million years ago. These were very simply structured plants with bare forked shoots, at the ends of which sporangia were located. In the process of evolution, land plants developed vegetative organs and developed spore-bearing organs. This led to the alternation of generations and later to the formation of seeds. According to the outstanding Russian paleobotanist Mayen, land became covered with vegetation only by the end of the Devonian. All subsequent history of Earth's biosphere proceeded under relatively stable geochemical conditions, while the evolution of plants and animals was rapid and vigorous. In plants, the relative surface area of the body gradually increased and, accordingly, the energy of photosynthesis increased. The role of mechanical tissue grew, and the conducting system, which ensured water delivery to the terminal parts of shoots, improved. In the course of evolution, the importance of the asexual generation in the life of the organism increased, accompanied by a decrease in the role of water in the fertilization process. Heterosporous seed plants appeared in Earth's history approximately 370 million years ago, at the end of Devonian. At that time, the composition of the atmosphere changed noticeably, which apparently caused the powerful development of ancient spore-bearing trees, lycophytes, cladioxylophytes, pteridophytes, and gymnosperms, benetids, cycads, chordaids, etc. The ovule appeared, and the embryo began to develop from a zygote within a seed. Gymnosperm plants appeared at the boundary of the Devonian and Carboniferous and remained the dominant group until the beginning of the Cretaceous epoch. The intensity of photosynthesis on the planet as a whole sharply increased. The concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere decreased, and significantly more ultraviolet rays began to penetrate to the surface. This probably led to the emergence of a great diversity of climates on Earth. Ancient tree-like plants forms began to die out, and enormous strata of gastrobioliths began to accumulate in the Earth's crust. A significant amount of carbon dioxide was removed from the cycle of matter. These changes occurred at the boundary of Paleozoic and Mesozoic. The modern largest group of angiosperms, or flowering plants, first appeared in the fossil record in the early Cretaceous period, approximately 140–130 million years ago. At the same time, a sharp change in this planet's biosphere occurred, often called the Great Extinction. It affected various groups of living organisms. At that time, many representatives of higher spore plants disappeared, and angiosperms became widespread. Flowering plants, like no previously dominant group of living organisms, are now represented by a wide spectrum of families and species, among which herbaceous forms hold a special place. The diversity of angiosperms is largely explained by the fact that along with them, pollinated insects appeared on the planet, as well as social insects. Methods of pollination became increasingly perfect. Among vertebrates in the Cretaceous period, the role of birds and mammals increased, although giant Paleozoic reptiles disappeared only by its end. Already in the Cenozoic, a rapid development of herbaceous plants occurred. The living world became increasingly diverse. The evolution of Earth's organic world was greatly influenced by epochs of mountain building, movement of lithospheric plates, transgressions and regressions of the world ocean, climate changes, and repeatedly recurring glaciations in the northern and southern hemispheres. During these cataclysms, entire groups of organisms that dominated the planet died out, or their role significantly decreased. As a result of evolution, new, more progressive forms of life appeared. Thus, in the same geological period, including the modern one, both unicellular and multicellular organisms, primitive and sufficiently complexly structured, far advanced along the evolutionary path from primary forms, existed simultaneously on Earth. The age of modern systematic groups of plants varies. Some of them have existed since the Upper Proterozoic. Others appeared later in the planet's history. Higher spore plants in the Devonian, gymnosperms in the Permian, angiosperms in the Cretaceous period. Some groups of plants widely distributed in past geological epochs, are now either not preserved or do not play their former role and are present only in a small number of species. For example, gymnosperm plants. Other groups of plants were forced to disappear, yielding to more progressive groups. Currently, angiosperm plants predominate.